Betrayed, imprisoned, and left to die in the most horrific punishments of the Ottoman Empire, I thought my life was over. From the hook of shame to the river sack, I watched men suffer, friends vanish, and hope fade. Yet amidst the cruelty, whispers of loyalty, secret letters, and a powerful friend outside kept me alive. I survived not for revenge but to reveal the truth. This is my story of betrayal, terror, and the relentless fight to expose a corrupt empire, where memory becomes the weapon stronger than fear. I remember the moment my life broke in two. One half was the man I used to be. The other half began when the soldiers grabbed my arms inside the palace hall. "I don't understand," I said, trying to pull free. "What is this?" Halil Pasha stood in front of me with his hands behind his back. The same man who once praised my work now stared at me like I was a stranger. "You understand very well," he said. "No," I replied. "I don't." One of the soldiers tightened his grip on my shoulder. "Arman," Halil said slowly, "you have been accused of treason against the Sultan." The words hit me like a blade. "Treason?" I laughed in disbelief. "I translate letters. I serve the court. That's all I've ever done." Halil's eyes stayed cold. "Sometimes translators read too much." "I served you faithfully," I said. "Every message, every document." "Yes," he replied. "You were very useful." My chest tightened. "Halil, I trusted you." "You trusted the wrong man." The soldiers started dragging me toward the doors. "Wait," I shouted. "Tell them the truth. Tell them this is a mistake." Halil didn't move. "Take him," he ordered quietly. The palace doors closed behind me, and that was the last time I saw freedom for many months. They threw me into a wagon and tied my hands. "Where are you taking me?" I asked. "To the imperial prison," one guard answered. "That's impossible," I said. "I've done nothing wrong." He shrugged. "That's not my problem." The prison gates opened hours later with a deep grinding sound. The air smelled like rust and damp stone. Inside, a tall guard with tired eyes looked at me. "This is the new one?" he asked. "Yes," a soldier replied. "Accused of treason." The guard studied my face. "My name is Mustafa," he said quietly. "I'm Arman," I replied. "There's been a mistake." Mustafa sighed. "They all say that." The soldiers unlocked my chains and pushed me forward. "Cell 3, one of them said. Mustafa walked me down a dark corridor. "Listen," I said. "You work here. You must know someone in the palace." "Maybe," he replied. "Then help me send a message." He stopped walking. "You don't understand where you are," he said. "Then explain it." "This place is where people disappear." The cell door opened with a loud creak. Inside sat an old man with gray hair and hollow eyes. Mustafa pointed. "Your new roommate." The old man looked up slowly. "Well," he said, "another unlucky soul." Mustafa closed the door behind me. The chains clanged against the stone floor. I turned to the old man. "Who are you?" I asked. He smiled faintly. "Kamal." "How long have you been here?" Kamal chuckled softly. "Long enough to watch many men scream." My stomach tightened. "What do you mean?" Kamal leaned closer. "You're new, so you don't know yet." "Know what?" Kamal's voice dropped to a whisper. "The Empire has many punishments." I felt a chill run through my body. "Punishments?" "Yes," he said. "Horrible ones." I shook my head. "This is madness. I'll prove my innocence." Kamal studied my face carefully. "Did someone powerful accuse you?" "Yes." "Who?" "Halil Pasha." Kamal's expression darkened. "That man?" he muttered. "You know him?" "I know the kind of man he is." Hope flickered inside me. "Then you know he's wrong." Kamal sighed. "Truth doesn't matter here. It has to matter." He leaned back against the wall. "Listen carefully, Arman." "I'm listening." "If Halil Pasha sent you here." "Yes." "He expects you to die here." My heart pounded. "No," I whispered. Kamal nodded slowly. "And before that happens, you'll probably see the Empire's worst punishments." I sat down on the cold floor, my hands trembling. For the first time, fear truly entered my chest. But deep inside my mind, another feeling slowly grew. Anger. That night, staring into the darkness of the cell, I made a promise to myself. "If I survive this place," I whispered, "I will expose every secret this empire hides." Prison life began crushing my spirit from the first morning. I woke to the sound of chains dragging across stone. "What's happening?" I asked, rubbing my eyes. Kamal sat against the wall, calm as always. "Another day," he muttered. The cell door opened suddenly. Mustafa stood there holding a lantern. "You too," he said quietly. "Come with me." "Where?" I asked. "The yard." My stomach tightened. Kamal stood slowly. "I told you," he whispered to me. "Your lessons are beginning." Mustafa led us through the corridor. I could hear prisoners whispering behind their doors. "What are they taking us to see?" I asked. Mustafa hesitated. "Today," he said softly, "you will see the first punishment." My throat went dry. "What punishment?" He looked at me. "The hook of shame." The yard was already full of guards when we arrived. In the center stood a wooden frame with chains hanging from it. A thin man was tied to the structure, shaking with fear. "What did he do?" I asked. "A thief," Mustafa replied. The prisoner screamed, "Please? I will return everything." A guard laughed. "Too late." I stepped back. "What are they going to do to him?" Kamal grabbed my arm. "Watch." "I don't want to." "You must." A metal hook gleamed in the sunlight. I felt sick. "Wait," the prisoner cried. "Please? Mercy." One guard shoved the hook forward. I heard a horrible scream. My body froze. They lifted the man slowly. The hook held him through his ribs as his body hung in the air. His scream echoed through the yard. "No," I whispered, turning away. Kamal grabbed my shoulder. "Look. I can't." "You must remember," he said firmly. "Why?" "Because memory is power." The prisoner kept screaming. "How long will he hang there?" I asked. Kamal shrugged. "Until the guards get bored." Mustafa looked uncomfortable. "Come," he said. "Enough." He led us back to the corridor. My hands were shaking. "How can they do that?" I asked. Kamal replied quietly, "Because they can." Back inside the cell block, another prisoner was pushed into the cell beside ours. He looked young, maybe younger than me. "Move," a guard barked, shoving him inside. The door slammed. The young man sat down heavily and stared at the floor. I stepped closer to the bars between our cells. "Hey," I said. "Are you all right?" He looked up slowly. "My name is Yusuf." "I'm Arman." "What are you in for?" he asked weakly. "Treason," I said bitterly. He laughed softly. "Then we are both doomed." "What about you?" "I insulted the Sultan," he said. "You what?" "It was a joke," he whispered. "Someone heard it." I sighed. "This place destroys lives." That night the prison grew quiet. Yusuf spoke softly through the bars. "Arman." "Yes." "Do you think we will survive?" His voice trembled. "I have to survive," I replied. "Why?" "Because someone betrayed me." "Who?" "Halil Pasha." Yusuf whistled quietly. "That's a powerful enemy." "I know." "So what will you do?" I clenched my fist. "I will find out why he did this." "And if you never leave here?" I stared at the dark ceiling. "Then at least I will understand the truth." Footsteps echoed in the hallway. Mustafa appeared again. He slipped something through the bars. "Brett." "For you," he whispered. "Thank you," I said. He leaned closer. "Listen carefully." "I'm listening." "Halil Pasha grows stronger every day in the palace." My chest tightened. "So he wins while I rot here." Mustafa looked around carefully. "Not always," he said quietly. "What do you mean?" "Power changes quickly." He walked away before I could ask more. Yusuf whispered from the next cell. "Arman." "Yes." "That punishment today, was that the worst?" I closed my eyes. "No." "How do you know?" "Because Kamal had already told me something terrifying. And deep down I knew the truth. The Empire had many punishments. And I had only seen the first one." Weeks passed inside the prison, though time felt strange in that dark place. One morning I heard the guards shouting in the corridor. "Get up," one of them yelled. I sat up quickly. "What now?" I asked Kamal. He sighed. "Another punishment." The cell doors opened and Mustafa appeared. "You too," he said quietly. "Come with me." I stood slowly. "What are we seeing today?" I asked. Mustafa looked uneasy. "The iron cage." My stomach tightened. We stepped into the yard again. This time a large iron cage hung from a wooden beam. The metal bars looked thick and cruel. A man stood nearby with his hands tied. He looked desperate. "Please," he begged the guards. "I am innocent." "What did he do?" I asked Mustafa. "He is a merchant," Mustafa said. "His name is Farid." Farid saw us watching. "You," he shouted at the guards. "Tell them I paid the taxes." One guard laughed. The vizier disagrees. My heart sank. Which vizier? I asked quietly. Mustafa didn't answer. Farid dropped to his knees. I have children, he pleaded. Please? A guard kicked him. Inside. They forced him into the cage. The metal door slammed shut. Farid grabbed the bars. This is madness, he screamed. A guard pushed the cage upward with a chain. Slowly it lifted into the air. The sun was already strong that morning. Farid clung to the bars. Please, he cried again. Someone help me. I stepped forward. This isn't justice, I said. Kamal grabbed my arm quickly. Quiet. But look at him, I whispered. Farid's voice cracked. Water. Please. One guard shrugged. The sun will give him plenty. No one deserves this, I whispered. Kamal shook his head slowly. In this empire, power decides what people deserve. The cage creaked as the wind moved it slightly. Farid's cries echoed across the yard. I turned away. I can't watch anymore. Mustafa nodded. Come back inside. Back in the corridor I felt anger building in my chest. This place is evil, I muttered. Kamal walked beside me. It has always been this way. But it shouldn't be. Later that afternoon someone approached our cell. A young woman carried a basket. She stopped outside the bars. You must be the new translator, she said quietly. I looked up. Yes. I'm Layla, she said. Who are you? I asked. My father cooks for the prison guards. She pushed a small bowl through the bars. Extra food. Kamal smiled faintly. That is kind. I looked at her carefully. Why help us? She shrugged. Because some people here don't belong. You think I don't belong? Yes, she said simply. Why? You still look angry. I laughed quietly. Anger doesn't prove innocence. No, she replied. But it proves you haven't given up. I leaned closer to the bars. I was betrayed. By who? Halil Pasha. Her eyes widened slightly. That's dangerous. I know. Then why tell me? Because I need someone to hear the truth. Layla studied me for a moment. Then survived long enough to prove it. Her words stayed in my mind after she left. That night Yusuf spoke weakly from the next cell. Arman. Yes. I feel terrible. What's wrong? My stomach hurts. I looked through the bars. You need food. I barely get any. I pushed half my bread through the gap. Take this. No, he said. Take it. He accepted it slowly. Thank you. You'll survive, I told him. I'm not sure. His voice sounded fragile. Kamal spoke from the corner. This prison breaks men faster than disease. I clenched my fist. We won't break. Kamal chuckled softly. You still believe that? Yes. Good, he said. Footsteps echoed again in the corridor. A guard shouted a name. Prisoner number 43. Someone screamed in the distance. Yusuf whispered nervously. They're taking someone again. Yes, I said quietly. Silence filled the prison after the footsteps faded. I stared into the darkness. Every day another name was called. Every day another man disappeared. And every night I wondered the same thing. When would they call mine? The night it happened, the prison exploded with noise. I woke suddenly when someone shouted in the corridor. What's going on? Yusuf whispered from the next cell. I stood and walked to the small window. Guards, I said. Many of them. Kamal moved beside me slowly. Listen carefully, he muttered. A guard's voice echoed outside. Bring the political prisoners. Chains rattled across the courtyard. Yusuf's voice shook. Arman, what are they doing? I don't know. Kamal looked through the window. Then he sighed heavily. I know. What is it? I asked. He turned toward us. The river sack. My chest tightened. What does that mean? Kamal pointed toward the yard. Watch. Several prisoners were dragged forward by guards. Their hands were tied tightly. One man shouted angrily. You cannot silence the truth. A guard punched him in the stomach. Quiet. Another prisoner cried, Please? I have a family. The guards ignored him. I leaned closer to the window. What are those sacks? Yusuf asked. I saw them lying on the ground. Large cloth sacks. Kamal spoke softly. They will put snakes inside. My stomach dropped. Snakes? Yes. That's impossible. A guard opened a basket. Even from the window I saw the movement. Yusuf gasped. No, no. The guards forced one prisoner into a sack. Wait, the man screamed. Please? Another guard dumped snakes inside. The sack twisted violently. My hands began shaking. Why are they doing this? Yusuf whispered. Kamal answered quietly. Fear. The guards tied the sack shut. Then 2 men lifted it. Where are they taking them? I asked. Kamal nodded toward the dark river beyond the prison wall. There. We watched as the guards carried the sacks away. The prisoners inside screamed and thrashed. Then came a splash. 1, 2, 3. The river swallowed them. Yusuf stepped away from the window, trembling. How can humans do this to each other? Kamal sat down slowly. Fear, he repeated. The yard grew silent again. I leaned against the wall, trying to steady my breathing. Footsteps approached our cell. Mustafa appeared at the bars. Arman, he said quietly. Yes. His face looked tense. We need to talk. My heart began pounding. What happened? Mustafa looked down the corridor first. Then he leaned closer. Halil Pasha has ordered your execution. The words hit me like a hammer. When? I asked. Soon. How soon? I don't know, he admitted. Yusuf spoke nervously. They can't do that. Mustafa sighed. They can. I grabbed the bars. There must be a mistake. There isn't. My chest felt tight. So this is it, I muttered. Mustafa reached into his coat. I have something for you. He slipped a folded paper through the bars. What is this? I asked. A letter. From who? Someone outside the prison. My hands trembled as I opened it. The handwriting was familiar. Yusuf whispered, What does it say? I read the line slowly. Hold on. I know the truth. Kamal leaned closer. Who wrote it? I swallowed hard. Captain Salim. Yusuf frowned. Who is that? An old friend, I said. Kamal raised an eyebrow. A powerful friend? Yes. Mustafa nodded quietly. He has been asking questions in the palace. Hope flickered inside my chest for the first time in months. He believes me? I asked. Yes, Mustafa replied. I read the letter again. Only 5 words. But they felt stronger than chains. Yusuf smiled weakly. Maybe you will get out. Maybe, I said. Kamal looked thoughtful. Powerful enemies create powerful reactions. I folded the letter carefully. Halil Pasha thinks I will die quietly. Mustafa studied my face. Will you? I shook my head slowly. No. For the first time since entering that prison I felt something new. Hope. And hope, in a place like that, was the most dangerous weapon of all. The next punishment came sooner than I expected. It began with shouting in the corridor again. A guard's voice echoed through the prison. Bring prisoner 57. Yusuf froze in his cell beside mine. That's me, he whispered. My heart dropped. No, I said quickly. There must be a mistake. The guards unlocked his door. Move, one of them barked. Yusuf stepped backward. Please, he said. I've done nothing. The guard grabbed his arm. I rushed to the bars. Stop. I shouted. Where are you taking him? Kamal stood beside me quietly. I know this one, he muttered. What do you mean? I asked. Kamal's voice was heavy. The pit of silence. My stomach twisted. What is that? Kamal looked at Yusuf sadly. A place where men disappear. The guards dragged Yusuf into the corridor. No. I shouted. Leave him alone. Yusuf struggled. Arman, he cried. I'm here. Don't forget me. I won't. The guards pulled him away. Remember me. Yusuf shouted again. His voice echoed down the hallway. Then it faded. Silence filled the prison. I turned to Kamal. What is this pit? I demanded. Kamal sighed. They throw prisoners into deep holes underground. And they leave them there. To die. Yes. I slammed my fist against the bars. That's murder. Kamal looked tired. This empire has many ways to kill a man. Hours passed slowly. I could not sit still. Finally I saw Mustafa walking down the corridor. Mustafa. I called. He stopped at my cell. What happened to Yusuf? I demanded. Mustafa avoided my eyes. He was taken to the pit. Bring him back. I can't. You helped me before. This is different. Anger exploded inside me. Why help me if you cannot save him? I shouted. Mustafa looked ashamed. You think I don't care? Then prove it. He leaned closer to the bars. I have been trying to expose Halil Pasha. I stared at him. What? Many innocent men died because of him. Kamal nodded slowly. That does not surprise me. I clenched my fist. Then why is he still free? Because he is powerful, Mustafa replied. Footsteps approached again. Layla appeared with her food basket. She noticed my face immediately. What happened? She asked. They took Yusuf, I said. Her expression softened. I'm sorry. Sorry isn't enough, I muttered. She looked around carefully. Arman, I need to tell you something. What? It's about Halil Pasha. My chest tightened. Speak. She lowered her voice. My father works in the palace kitchen sometimes. And? He heard the guards talking. About me? Yes. I leaned closer. What did they say? Layla hesitated. Halil Pasha forged evidence. The words hit me hard. What? You discovered corruption in the palace accounts. My mind raced. The stolen taxes, I whispered. Yes. And he blamed me. He needed you silenced, Layla said. Everything suddenly made sense. The accusations. The arrest. The prison. Kamal looked at me carefully. So the translator knew too much. I felt rage burning inside my chest. That man destroyed innocent lives. Mustafa nodded. I told you he was dangerous. Then why hasn't anyone stopped him? Mustafa looked around the corridor again. Because until now no one had proof. I remembered the letter in my pocket. Someone believes me, I said quietly. Layla looked curious. Who? Captain Salim. Mustafa nodded slowly. He has been asking questions. Kamal smiled faintly. Powerful friends can change fate. I clenched my fist. Halil Pasha thinks I'm finished. Layla studied my face. But you're not. No, I said. For the first time since Yusuf disappeared into that terrible pit, my grief began turning into something stronger. Rage. Determination. And the quiet promise of revenge. Because Captain Salim was coming. And when he arrived, the game would finally change. The morning everything changed began with shouting. Loud footsteps rushed through the corridor. I sat up quickly. What's happening? I asked. Kamal stood near the bars. Too many guards, he muttered. The prison doors slammed open. Soldiers flooded the hallway. One voice shouted above the others. Open that cell. The door unlocked suddenly. I stepped back, confused. Then I saw him. Salim? I whispered. Captain Salim walked inside the cell. He looked older than I remembered, but his eyes were sharp. Arman, he said. You actually came. He pulled out a knife and cut the chains from my wrists. You're coming with me. Kamal raised an eyebrow. So the storm finally arrived. I rubbed my wrists. What's happening? Salim spoke quickly. The Sultan ordered an investigation. And? Halil Pasha's secrets are exposed. My heart pounded. What secrets? False accusations. Stolen gold. Innocent executions. Mustafa appeared behind Salim. I told them everything, he said quietly. I looked at him. You risked your life. Yes, he replied. Salim gestured toward the door. Come with me. We walked through the prison corridors. For the first time I left those walls. Soon we stood inside the palace hall. Halil Pasha was already there, surrounded by guards. He looked furious when he saw me. You, he spat. I stepped forward. You destroyed my life. Halil sneered. You were weak. I was loyal. Loyal men are easy to use, he said coldly. I clenched my fist. Why frame me? Because you found the truth, he replied. Salim spoke sharply. The Sultan knows everything now. Halil laughed bitterly. Power decides truth. A deep voice echoed across the hall. Not today. The Sultan stepped forward. Silence filled the room. The Sultan looked directly at Halil. Your crimes are proven. Halil's face tightened. You cannot do this. I can, the Sultan replied. Guards stepped closer. Your punishment will match your cruelty. Halil's confidence began fading. What punishment? He asked. The Sultan answered calmly. The iron cage. Halil's eyes widened. No. The guards grabbed his arms. This is injustice, he shouted. They dragged him away. For the first time I saw fear on his face. Salim stood beside me. It's over. I watched the doors close behind Halil. And for the first time in many months, justice finally felt real. Months passed before I returned to the prison gates. This time I stood outside them. Free. The iron doors looked smaller than I remembered. Salim stood beside me. You don't have to stay here, he said. I know. Then why come back? I stared at the walls. Because part of me is still inside. Salim nodded slowly. I understand. Do you? Yes, he replied. War leaves the same scars. I took a slow breath. What happened to Mustafa? I asked. Salim smiled faintly. He left the prison. Really? Yes. What does he do now? He helps the families of prisoners. I felt relief. That sounds like him. Salim pointed toward the harbor road. And Layla? What about her? She opened a small food shop. I smiled slightly. She always wanted a better life. She earned it, Salim said. I looked back at the prison again. What about Kemal? Salim asked gently. I shook my head. He never left that place. Salim lowered his voice. I'm sorry. And Yusuf, I added quietly. The boy in the pit? Yes. Silence hung between us. Salim finally spoke. You survived. I know. But survival carries responsibility. I looked at him. What kind? The truth, he said. His words stayed in my mind. That night I sat at a wooden desk in a small room near the harbor. A blank page rested in front of me. Layla knocked on the door. You're still writing? She asked. Yes. About the prison? Yes. Why? She asked softly. I looked at the page. Because people need to know. Know what? I dipped the pen into ink. I will tell their stories, I whispered. Not for revenge. Layla watched quietly. Then for what? For truth. I wrote the first sentence slowly. Empires hide their crimes. But memory is stronger than fear. And I survived to remember.